This is Drama 203, and this will be my lecture on the Agamemnon by the great tragic playwright Aeschylus. I'll be using our course textbook, the Norton Anthology of Drama, Part 1, and so we'll be starting on page number 92. And as I go through the text, I'm going to be referring to the line numbers, not the page numbers, the line numbers. So please follow along with me. So as I said, in this lecture, I'm going to start my examination of the first of the three Greek tragedies that we'll be studying in this course. Now, the Greek word for tragedy is tragedia, which originally meant goat song, perhaps a reference to the ritual sacrifice of goats to honor the gods. Remember, as I said last week, tragedy as well as comedy, the Greek theater as a whole, emerged out of religious ritual. In particular, rituals honoring the god Dionysus. Well, before we get into the play, I want to say some things about its author, Aeschylus. He was born into an aristocratic family sometime between 525 and 514 BCE in Eleusis, a town outside Athens. As a young man, he fought for Athens in important military campaigns, including the Battle of Marathon in 490 BCE, where the Athenians and their allies defeated a massive Persian army that was invading Greece. He gained fame in his lifetime, not as a soldier, but as a playwright. He won the city Dionysia festival for the first time in 484 BCE. Before his death in 456, he is said to have written 80 plays, although only 7 of those plays survive. He is considered the first great writer of tragic plays. He was an innovator. He increased the number of actors on the stage to 2. Previously, the plays consisted of dialogue between a single actor and a chorus. Those were the first stage performances in Athens. As I mentioned last week, it was the choral leader Thespis who essentially became the first actor, the first director, the first playwright by donning a mask, assuming the identity on stage of a character, and engaging the chorus in a dialogue. Those were the first plays. Aeschylus comes along and adds a second character. So in Aeschylus's plays, for the first time, you have dialogue between 2 individual characters. And that opens up so much to what drama would become. Moreover, Aeschylus introduced the convention of actors leaving the stage in the course of the play and returning as other characters in the story. Eventually, Aeschylus added a third actor. One of his plays, The Persians, is about a contemporary event, the war between the Greeks and Persia. But the rest of his surviving plays draw upon myth, especially the Homeric myths. The poet, storyteller Homer is thought to have been the author of the most influential epic poems in ancient Greece. The first of those poems is the Iliad, and the second is the Odyssey, both of which were probably written in the 8th century BCE, although the stories in these poems had circulated for centuries through the oral tradition. Homer's poems tell the tales of grand heroic figures. The Greek gods, too, are featured in both the Iliad and the Odyssey. Homer's main subject matter is the war between the Greeks and the Trojans and the aftermath of the war. The main cast of characters in these 2 epic poems includes Achilles, Odysseus, Helen, Hector, Paris, and Agamemnon, the leader of the Greek forces. Aeschylus's play Agamemnon was first staged at the City Dionysia festival in 458 BCE, and it tells the story of what happens when the Greek general returns home from war. His home is the city-state of Argos, where he reigns as king, having inherited the throne from his father Atreus. So we hear the phrase, read the phrase, House of Atreus throughout the play. That is the family lineage of the royal monarchs of Argos. Aeschylus's primary sources for this play would have been the epic poems that came after Homer's work and filled out the story of Troy. Agamemnon is the first play in a trilogy that scholars have called the Oresteia, which is the only surviving trilogy of Greek tragedies. Remember, I mentioned last week how the tragedies on the Greek stage were performed in threes, performed at the Dionysia festival in threes. We have scattered tragedies from the three great tragic writers, but it's only the three plays making up the Oresteia where we have a complete trilogy. Well, I've broken this play into four parts, and I want to look at each of those four parts. The first part, which covers lines 1 to line 258, I'm calling War and Sacrifice. The pain of pain remembered comes again. So this play, Aeschylus's Agamemnon, begins not with the royal family of Argos, but with a servant, the watchman who is trying to stay awake. As he says at lines 3 to 4, he is crouched on the roofs of Atreus, the palace belonging to the family of Atreus, the royal family of Atreus. He is crouched on the roofs of Atreus like a dog. In the original production, the watchman would have been standing atop the skene. The skene was relatively new to Greek drama when Aeschylus started writing his plays, and he makes brilliant use of it in this particular play. The stage device of the character watching from the wall, a device used in several tragedies, is called tekoscopia. That is the device of the convention of the character watching from the wall. Well, this character's primary assignment is to watch for a signal fire, a beacon that will indicate that the city of Troy has been taken by the Greek invaders. He does his job on the orders of the Queen of Argos, Clytemnestra, who has been ruling in her husband's absence. Look at lines 11 to 12. The watchman says, "So she commands, full of her high hopes, that woman, she maneuvers like a man." So it's significant that the play's first reference to Clytemnestra is a reference to the fact she's assumed what, in the patriarchal society of ancient Greece, was considered the rightful role of a man. Significantly, it's implied that she likes being in command, and that the watchman resents the fact that she now holds authority in the land. The watchman yearns for the times before the war, when the house of Atreus was in its full glory. Line 21, he says, "I cry for the hard times come to this house, no longer run like the great place of old. Oh, for a blessed end to all our pain." So as the play begins, it's a time of literal darkness, it's occurring during the night, and metaphorical darkness for the city-state of Argos. The watchman's prayers are seemingly answered when he sees the flames of the long-anticipated signal fire. He foresees the return of his master Agamemnon. Line 37, "I'll take your loving hand in mine," the watchman says of the absent king. The watchman also promises himself that he'll keep quiet about the things that have gone on in the palace in the intervening years. This is at line 39. Ay, but the house and these old stones, give them a voice, and what a tale they'd tell. And so would I, gladly. I speak to those who know, to those who don't, my mind's a blank. So the viewer, the playgoer, at this point begins to wonder what tales the old stones of the house would tell. Well, next, the chorus enters the stage. This is the part of a Greek tragedy called the parados, the entry of the chorus. In this play, the chorus is meant to represent the old men of Argos. The young men, it's implied, have gone off to war. So you've got to picture it. The chorus entering the stage in the parados, 12 to 15 masked actors who will sing for us and dance for us during the stasima portion of the play. Well, they describe themselves at line 79, line 80, as old, dishonored ones, the broken husks of men. Line 87, they describe themselves as aged past aging. So from lines 44 to line 295, we get the first stasima of the chorus, the first choral lyric sung by this group of performers. They provide what is called exposition. Exposition is a crucial device that was used back in the day of Aeschylus and still used today. Exposition means the relation of essential prior matters. What happened before the beginning of the story. And it is through the choral ode, through the stasimon, we learn a good deal of the necessary information that will allow us to understand the action of this play. The chorus relates the story of the Trojan War, which began 10 years earlier when Agamemnon and his brother and fellow king Menelaus, in the words of the chorus, this is at line 50, launched Greece in 1,000 ships, armadas cutting loose from the land, armies massed for the cause, the rescue, the heart within them screamed for all-out war. War against the city-state of Troy, which was located in Asia Minor, now Turkey, and which was ruled by King Priam. Agamemnon and Menelaus, the brothers from the house of Atreus, initiated all-out war when Menelaus's wife Helen ran away with, or depending on the source, was abducted by Prince Paris, Priam's son, who had been the guest of Menelaus in Menelaus's own palace. So in stealing Helen, who would by legend come to be known as Helen of Troy, Prince Paris violated the sacred rules of hospitality. The sacred rules of hospitality, which were so important in ancient Greek culture. According to these rules, men would be expected to host visitors, provide them with a bath, the promise of safety for the night, and passage to their next destination. Guests, in turn, were expected to respect their hosts and return the favor if ever the host visited them. So, Paris violated this sacred rule. And so it is Helen that the brothers sought to rescue. And I think that word belongs in quotation marks. Helen, who was Clytemnestra's sister. Throughout this play, Aeschylus uses many poetic devices. This is an example of poetic drama, where the characters speak in verse. The chorus offers an especially vivid simile to describe the terrible costs of all-out war. This is at line 54. And a simile, going back to your schooling in English literature, is a comparison between two distinctly different things using the words like or as. And Aeschylus is a master of the simile. As evidence here, picking it up at line 54, like vultures robbed of their young, the agony sends them frenzied. Speaking about Agamemnon and Menelaus. Soaring high from the nest, round and round they wheel. They row their wings, stroke upon churning, thrashing stroke. But all the labor, the bed of pain, the young are lost forever. So the old men of Argos have been waiting 10 years for their warriors to return, their warriors to come home. In a stunning metaphor, the chorus says that Greece and Troy, this is at line 71, line 72, Greece and Troy marry in blood rights. They marry in blood rights, all for a woman, man by many, line 68. And a metaphor, going back to English 100, is a phrase, a turn of speech in which two distinctly different things are compared without using a direct assertion, without using a simile, without using the word like or the word as. So metaphors and similes are both examples of figurative language, the main tool of the lyric poet. And Aeschylus proves himself a master of figurative language in this play, and in fact in all his plays. Well, the chorus later describes the two Greek kings, the two brothers, in another metaphor as eagles. Eagles digging their claws into a pregnant hare. Metaphorically, the kingdom of Troy. Eagles digging their claws into a pregnant hare, the babies of the hare, line 122 to 123, spilling quick spurts of blood. There's more exposition in this early episode of the play. There's more exposition than simply the account of the causes of the Trojan War. Let's turn to line 147. At line 147, the chorus expresses its hope that the crosswinds don't delay Agamemnon's ship, because that might require, and this is a key phrase, that might require another victim. Line 147, another victim. Well, we then learn the identity of the first victim. As the chorus relates, the horrible deed Agamemnon committed at the beginning of the decade-long war. When the Greek fleet assembled at the Greek port town of Aeschylus, ready to sail for Troy, Agamemnon, their general, killed a deer sacred to Artemis. Artemis was the goddess of the hunt and goddess of chastity. In killing this deer sacred to the god, he brought upon the Greeks her curse. And enraged Artemis punished the fleet with unfavorable winds. At line 193, the chorus describes what happened. Winds from the north pinned down our hulls at Aeschylus, port of anguish, headwinds starving, sheets and the cables snapped, and the men's minds strayed. So they were stuck in port before they could even make it to Troy to rescue Helen. A prophet, a seer named Calchas, revealed to Agamemnon and Menelaus the following, line 201. He said, "My captains, Artemis must have blood." Artemis demanded a sacrifice, and that sacrifice was to be, lines 137 to 138, a woman trembling young. Agamemnon and Clytemnestra's own daughter, Ephigemia. Agamemnon recognized he was in a no-win scenario. Line 212, the chorus remembers. Both Agamemnon thinking to himself, pain both ways, and what is worse? Ultimately, the general decided, line 213, he couldn't desert the fleets, fail the alliance. Thus, as the chorus goes on to detail, Agamemnon, his spirit, line 217, his spirit veering black, impure, unholy, has Ephemegia sacrificed on an altar, ensuring she is gagged so she doesn't curse her family in her final moments. The chorus recognizes that Clytemnestra has never forgiven her husband. Earlier in the Stasimen, this is at line 150. At line 150, the chorus look to the palace, and they sing, the architect of vengeance, growing stronger in the house, with no fear of the husband. Here she waits, the terror raging back and back in the future, the stealth, the law of the hearth, the mother, memory womb of fury, child avenging fury. This word, fury. In Greek mythology, the Furies were three female spirits of vengeance, and you never wanted to cross the Furies because they were out for blood and they almost always got it. So this is a play, in fact, a series of plays that is about vengeance. And that's set up for us in this very first choral lyric, the very first Stasimen performed by the chorus. Well, let's turn to what I'm calling the second part of this play, and that's lines 259 to 1031. I'm calling this section Homecoming. He comes, he brings us light in the darkness. Well, this second section of Aeschylus's Agamemnon begins with Clytemnestra sharing with the chorus the news of the Greek victory. The chorus initially doesn't believe her. Clytemnestra says they treat her, line 277, like a child. But we do learn what Clytemnestra has done. We learn she has set up an elaborate chain of beacon fires from Troy to Argos. So those in Argos will know the outcome of the war within hours of it ending. At line 314, she says, torch to torch, running for their lives, one long succession, racing home by fire. And now on this night, the night on which the play begins, all the beacon fires have been lit. And now they know war has come to an end and their men are coming home. Well, in the Stasimen, the choral lyric that follows, this is in lines 359 to 478, the chorus attributes the victory of the Greeks to Zeus, Zeus, the king of the gods. Agamemnon was Zeus's agent of revenge, the chorus asserts, an agent of revenge against the Trojans for Paris's actions. Zeus, among many other things, was considered the patron of hospitality and was said to punish hosts who mistreated their guests, and, in the case of Paris, guests who mistreated their hosts. Expressing traditional Greek belief, the chorus affirms that Zeus is all-powerful and shapes the destiny of men and women and nations. Line 383 to line 386, I think this is a crucial passage. The chorus puts it this way, bastions of wealth are no defense for the man who treads the grand altar of justice down and out of sight. Notice here that the chorus accepts without question that the whole city of Troy and all its populace had to pay for one person's crime, one person's violation of the sacred rules of hospitality, Paris's adulterous affair with Helen. At the same time, the chorus gives an eloquent and poignant description of the terrible costs of war. This is at line 427 and goes on to line 434. All through Greece, those who flock to war, they are holding back the anguish now. You can feel it rising now in every house. I tell you, there is much to tear the heart. They knew the men they sent, but now in the place of men, ashes and urns come back to every earth. And remember, the chorus is the representative of the community. In that quotation I offered last week by Bernard Knowles, he said that the chorus on stage was like having the spectators and the audience on stage. They expressed the feelings of the community, often the traditional beliefs that were thought to hold together ancient Greek society. Well, the chorus implies here that to the common people who lost their sons to the 10-year war in Troy, it hardly seems to have been worthwhile. They privately feel rancor, line 445. Rancor, in other words, bitterness over Agamemnon and Menelaus' decision to rescue Helen. Again, that word rescue needs to be put in quotation marks and be treated with suspicion. In the episode that follows, a herald just returned from Troy gives a first-hand account of the city's destruction. He also announces Agamemnon's impending arrival. This is at line 513. So just turn to line 513 in our text. The herald says this: "He comes," referring to Agamemnon. "He comes, he brings us light in the darkness, free for every comrade. Agamemnon, Lord of men." The herald goes on to recount what war is like for the common soldier. So move a bit ahead. This is at line 546 and continues to line 559. "A long, hard pull we had," the herald says. This man who was now fought for a decade in this war against the Trojans. "A long, hard pull we had, if I would tell it all. The iron rations, penned in the gangways, hawk by jowl like sheep. Whatever miseries break a man, our quota every sun-starved day. Then on the beaches it was worse. Dug in, under the enemy ramparts, deadly going. Out of the sky, out of the marshy flats, the dews soaked us, turning the ruts we fought from into gullies, made our gear, our scalps crawl with lice. And talk of the cold, the sleet to freeze, the gulls and the big snows come avalanching down from Mount Ida. Oh, but the heat, the sea, and the windless noons, the swells asleep drop to a dead calm." So I think this is quite remarkable. Aeschylus writes about the heroic figures celebrated in ancient Greece, which he was expected to do, which the audience at the Dionysian theater seemingly never tired of hearing about. And he writes about them, but he includes voices in his work that take the heroism out of war. We also learn in the speeches spoken by the herald, we also learn that after all the bloodshed, suffering, and loss, most of the Greek ships were destroyed on the sea as they traveled homeward. Picking it up at line 646. "Storms swept the Greeks, and not without the anger of the gods. Those enemies for ages, fire and water, sealed a pact and showed it to the world. They crushed our wretched squadrons. Among the lost ships was the ship of Agamemnon's brother Menelaus." In the series of episodes that form the middle of the play, we finally meet Agamemnon. we see Clytemnestra for a second and then a third time on stage. And in these episodes, Clytemnestra and Agamemnon say all the things they're supposed to say, given the positions they hold in their society as king and queen of Argos. Let's move to line 599. And this is Clytemnestra speaking. She's addressing the chorus, and she declares, line 599, "Have him, Agamemnon, come with speed, the people's darling, how they long for him. And for his wife may he return and find her true at our home, just as the day he left her, faithful to the last, a watchdog gentle to him alone, savage to those who cross his path. I have not changed. The strains of time can never break our seal." Bit later, this is at line 842, Clytemnestra says to the chorus, "O nobility of Argos, gathered here, I am not ashamed to tell you how I love the man," how she loves her husband who is returning home. Agamemnon, who appears for the first time at line 767, attributes all his successes to the gods. Picking it up at line 795. Let's move ahead to line 795 and Agamemnon's first lengthy speech. He says, "First, with justice I salute my Argos and my gods, my accomplices who brought me home and won my rights from Priam's Troy, the just gods." So he reiterates this point several times in his speeches. It wasn't he, the great Agamemnon, who won this battle. It was the gods who won the battle through him. So he is the noble, God-fearing, humble king, and she is the passionately devoted, unfailingly dutiful wife. Or so that's the way they make it appear. But it's clear from their exchanges that everything isn't as perfect as it may initially seem. Clytemnestra, this is at line 864, Clytemnestra announces that in the intervening years, she sent away their son, Orestes, claiming she did so for his own protection. However, this news startles Agamemnon. He's come home and his son has been sent away. His son was sent away long ago. Then Clytemnestra insists that Agamemnon enter their house by walking upon crimson tapestry, a crimson tapestry laid out by her servants. This is at line 898. She says at line 898, "Never sit the foot," she says to Agamemnon, "never sit the foot that stamped out Troy on earth again, my great one." And Agamemnon explains why this shouldn't be done. He says at line 915, just move ahead to line 915, "Never, only the gods deserve the pomp of honor and the stiff brocades of fame. To walk on them, I am human, and it makes my pulses stir with dread. Give me the tributes of a man and not a god, a little earth to walk on, not this gorgeous work." So Agamemnon won't walk on the crimson because it suggests, if he does so, it suggests pride and arrogance. Only gods should walk on crimson tapestry. So once again, Agamemnon says the right things. But then Clytemnestra mentions Priam. Priam, the king of Troy. Line 930. "But Priam, can you see him? Can you see him walking on the carpet if he had your success?" And look at Agamemnon's response. His response at line 932. "Striding on the tapestries of God, I see him now." Clytemnestra adds, "And you fear the reproach of common men?" You know, she's saying, why would a king as great as you worry what the common people think. So she challenges his sense of his self, pushing his emotional, psychological buttons. But that isn't the only reason he relents. He also wants to please her. He asks at line 937, "It means so much to you?" And when it's clear that it does mean so much to her, he does walk upon the tapestry, though he adds, "for this one time only." Line 955, he says, "And now, since you have brought me down with your insistence, just this once I enter my father's house, trampling royal crimson as I go." So Agamemnon enters the door of the Skene, which we're meant to imagine is his palace, and Clytemnestra follows, along with their servants. Agamemnon, the victor in this great war, the greatest of all wars, and Clytemnestra, his queen, who has taken such good care of Argos in his absence. So all seems well, but the chorus is worried. Look at line 977. The chorus says, "Why? Why does it rock me? Never stops this terror beating down my heart, this seer that sees it all." Well, in this episode, the red tapestry, the red carpet, is such a wonderful touch theatrically. Martin and Puchner, the editor for our Norton edition, the text we're using in this class, points out that this stage prop, the tapestry, would be used on an otherwise bare stage. And even the large audience, the Dionysus Theater, 14 to 17,000 spectators, would have been able to see the carpet from afar, the crimson carpet. Aeschylus does not use a lot of stage properties, but when he does, they have great potency, as is the case here. But now I want to move on to the third section of the play, which covers lines 1032 to 13,054. And this third section of the play focuses on the second female character, Cassandra. "Slave that she is," the chorus declares, "the god lives on inside of her." So lines 1032 to 1354. She enters the stage with Agamemnon, who makes reference to her the first time at line 948, describing her. Let's just turn to that. He describes her as the gift of the armies, flower and pride of all the wealth we won. She follows me from Troy, says Agamemnon. So Cassandra is one of the daughters of King Priam, and Agamemnon has brought her back home to Argos as his war prize. Essentially, she's forced to be his mistress. She remains on stage after Agamemnon exits, and won't respond to Clytemnestra when the queen orders her into the palace. Finally, after Clytemnestra leaves, dismissing Cassandra as a madwoman, the chorus engages Cassandra in dialogue, making for one of the most disturbing and compelling episodes in the entire play. Cassandra's first words are spoken at line 1072. Her first words are fragmentary, almost incoherent. She says, "Aie, earth, mother, curse of the earth, Apollo, Apollo." Cassandra is a prophetess. She is a seer. And in this episode, she sees the tragedy which will end the play. This is at line 1100. She says, "Oh no, what horror, what new plot, new agony this. It's growing, massing deep in the house. A plot, a monstrous thing to crush the loved ones. No, there is no cure, and rescue's far away." Well, as the dialogue between Cassandra and the chorus continues in this third section of Aeschylus's Agamemnon, she reveals her origin story, how the princess of Troy became a prophetess. And this is at line 1207. So let's just move ahead to line 1207 in our text. And this very important piece of dialogue between the leader of the chorus and Cassandra. Cassandra says, starting at line 1207, Apollo the prophet. Apollo is the god of archery, of music, of the sun, as well as one of the gods of prophecy. Apollo the prophet introduced me to this gift. And the leader says, a god, and moved with love? Cassandra explains, I was ashamed to tell this once, but now, the leader interjects, we spoil ourselves with scruples long as things go well. Cassandra continues, he, Apollo, came like a wrestler, magnificent, took me down, and breathed his fire through me. And, the leader interjects, you bore him a child? Cassandra answers, I yielded. Then at the climax, I recoiled. I deceived Apollo. The leader of the chorus is shocked. But the gods' skills, they seized you even then? Cassandra says, even then I told my people all the grief to come. And the leader then is curious. And Apollo's anger never touched you? Is it possible? Cassandra explains, once I betrayed him, I could never be believed. So she has the gift of prophecy, but no one believes her prophecies. No one believes her visions. She's also able to see past events that she didn't witness, as she demonstrates in her speech starting at line 1220. Let's just turn to that speech, the speech starting at line 1220. She says, the pain, the terror, the death pang of the seer who tells the truth. She was in the midst of one of these visions, this gift that Apollo gave to her, along with the curse that no one would ever believe her visions. She says, the birth pang of the seer who tells the truth, it whirls me. Oh, the storm comes in, the crashing chords. Look, you see them nestling at the threshold, young in the darkness like a dream, like children really. Yes, and their loved ones brought them down. Their hands, they fill their hands with their own flesh. They are serving it like food, holding out their entrails. No, it's clear. I can see the armfuls of compassion, see the Father reach to taste, and for so much suffering, I tell you, someone plots revenge. So this is the first time in the play we hear about the tragic and grotesque events that occurred within Agamemnon's family a generation earlier. Atreus, Agamemnon's father, feuded with his brother Thyestes over the throne of Mysia. Thyestes also had an affair with Atreus's wife, Agamemnon's mother, Erope. Well, after Atreus had regained the throne, he pretended to make peace with his brother and invited him to a banquet. But Atreus had secretly murdered Thyestes' two oldest sons and cut them into pieces. He served the unsuspecting Thyestes his own sons at the feast. When Thyestes found out, he cursed the house of Atreus. And that is what Cassandra is seeing in this vision. She is seeing the vision of the slain sons of Thyestes and the course of revenge that is working itself out over that barbaric act. Well, the vision that Cassandra finds most disturbing, though, is the vision she has of her own death. This is at line 1269. Lines 1269 to 1274. Cassandra says, his fire, sears me, sweeps me again. She's experiencing another of these visions. The torture. Apollo, Lord of light, you burn, you blind me. The vision is so powerful, it's overwhelming her. Agony. She. Clytemnestra refers to she. She is the lioness that rears on her hind legs. She beds with the wolf when her lion king goes ranging. She will kill me. A lioness will kill her. Well, Clytemnestra, Cassandra begins to realize, is the lioness. And Cassandra will be among her victims. Cassandra's final speech in this play is unforgettable. It begins at line 13:12. Let's turn to that line right now. Line 13:12. Cassandra says, I must be brave. It is my turn to die. I address you the chorus, you the audience watching this play, as the gates of death. I pray it comes with one clear stroke. No convulsions, the pulses ebbing out in gentle death. I'll close my eyes and sleep. The leader of the chorus then states, so much pain, poor girl, and so much truth. You've told so much, but if you see it coming clearly, how can you go to your own death like a beast to the altar driven on by God and hold your head so high? Cassandra responds, no escape, my friends, not now. The leader of the chorus isn't satisfied with that answer. He says, but the last hour should be savored. And Cassandra responds, my time has come, little to gain from flight. She sees the future, her own future, but she realizes she can't change it. And so, in one of the most powerful moments in Greek tragedy, Cassandra walks into the house, into the palace, walks through the door of the skein. She is arguably the most tragic character in this play. Well, the fourth and final part of the play begins at line 1355. So let's just move ahead to line 1355. The chorus is reflecting on Cassandra's prophecies. When, along with the playgoers, the chorus hears the voice of Agamemnon. The voice of Agamemnon from within the palace, from behind the door of the skein. Line 1368. Ah, struck deep, the death blow deep. Cassandra's prophecy has become a gruesome reality. At line 1391, the murderer and her victims are revealed. The skein door opens, and the audience sees, quoting the stage direction in the text, a silver cauldron that holds the body of Agamemnon, shrouded in bloody robes, with the body of Cassandra to his left, and Clytemnestra standing to his right, sword in hand. So the bodies would be carried onto the orchestra, the stage, on a rolling platform. That platform was called the Aeschylus. That this platform, which was used in many plays, most often as it's used here, to roll out the body of a killed character or characters. Clytemnestra addresses the stunned chorus at line 1391. Words, endless words, I've said to serve the moment. Now it makes me proud to tell the truth. Everything I've said to this point, to you, the chorus, the people of Argos, the old men of Argos, has been a lie. They've just been empty words. Here's the truth. How else prepare a death for deadly men who seem to love you? How to rig the nets of pain so high no man can overleap them. I brooded on this trial, this ancient blood feud, year by year. At last my hour came. Here I stand, and here I struck, and here my work is done. I did it all. I don't deny it, no. He had no way to flee or fight his destiny. She relishes describing every detail of the murders. This is picking it up at line 1404. Let's turn to line 1404 in our text. She says, I coil him round and round in the wealth, the robes of doom, and then I strike him once, twice, and at each stroke he cries in agony. He buckles at the knees and crashes here. And when he's down, I add the third last blow to the Zeus who saves the dead beneath the ground. I send the third blow in homage like a prayer. So he goes down, and the life is bursting out of him, great sprays of blood, and the murderous shower wounds me, dyes me black, and I revel. Like the earth when the spring rain comes down, another simile. Like the earth when the spring rains come down, the blessed gifts of God, and the new green spear splits the sheath and rips to birth in glory. Lines 1404 to 1415 were the most important, most revealing, most chilling speeches in all of Greek tragedy. So we learn from this speech that she threw a net over her husband and then stabbed him to death. We now realize that she insisted he walk on the crimson to discredit him in the eyes of his people, so they would think that he is prideful. We also realize that she sent Orestes away, not to protect him, but to be able to plot against Agamemnon without their son's interference. Notice that in this play, as in all of Greek tragedy, the violence is described. The violence is described but not shown. The violence takes place behind the door of the scheme. The chorus is horrified. Line 1452, the chorus claims she is mad with ambition, crazed with the carnage that rages through her brain. Only an insane person could ever do this. But Clytemnestra passionately and eloquently explains her motives. She explains her motives even as the chorus attempts to exile her. This is at line 1437, going to line 1451. You banish me from this city, she says to the chorus, curses breathing down my neck. But he, speaking of Agamemnon, name one charge you brought against him then. He thought no more of it than killing a beast, and his flocks were rich, teeming in their flames. But he sacrificed his own child, our daughter, the agony I labored into love to charm away the savage winds of Thrace. Didn't the law demand you banish him? Hunt him from the land for all his guilt? But now you witness what I've done, and you are ruthless judges. Threaten away, I'll meet you blow for blow. And if I fall, the throne is yours. If God decrees the reverse, late as it is, old men, you'll learn your place. She calls her act, at line 1429, a masterpiece of justice. The critic Edith Hall, a wonderful scholar, 20th century, 21st century scholar of Greek tragedy, has said of Clytemnestra that she knows she's far more intelligent than anyone in Argos. She has the best speeches and the best argumentation of anyone in the play. Hall points out as well, Clytemnestra in this scene takes on the chorus, the assembled people of Argos. She's a superior individual to the rest of Argos. And that is one reason to justify her actions, or through which Clytemnestra justifies her actions. And of course, the major reason is he, Agamemnon, killed her child. So an argument definitely could be made in support of Clytemnestra's actions, or at least understanding Clytemnestra's motives. Well, it should also be pointed out, however, that Clytemnestra has murdered Cassandra as well. This is at line 1468. She looks down on Cassandra's corpse. Here, his, Agamemnon's spear prize. What wonders she beheld! The seer of Apollo shared my husband's bed, his faithful mate, who knelt at the rowing benches worked by every hand. Picking it up at line 1474. His lover lies beside him. She brings a fresh, voluptuous relish to my bed. So Clytemnestra has no sympathy for Cassandra. Cassandra, who could be seen as another victim of Agamemnon. Well, to his wife, Agamemnon was a murderer who deserved what he got. It is Clytemnestra's masterpiece of justice that she slays him. But to the chorus, Agamemnon was, in their words, this is at line 1480, our dearest shield. Line 1575, they call him this godlike man. At line 1661, our great commander. The chorus sees him as a hero. In the final section of the play, the chorus mourns their fallen king as a tragic victim, his murder and act against religion. Look at line 1571 to line 1525. The chorus sings, "Oh, my king, my captain, how to salute you, how to mourn you. What can I say with all my warmth and love? Here in the black widow's web you lie, gasping out your life in a sacrilegious death. Dear God, reduced to a slave's bed, my king of men, yoked by stealth and fate, by the wife's hand that thrust the two-edged sword." Then in the refrain of their mourning song, which is repeated twice in this episode, it is stated for the first time at line 1566. The chorus wishes for death. Earth, dear earth, if only you'd drawn me under long before I saw him huddled in the beaten silver bath. Who will bury him, lift his dirge, perform his funeral rites? Well, as the chorus puts it at line 1588, each charge meets countercharge when it comes to the fate of Agamemnon. He was a murderer. He let his family down. He sacrificed his own daughter. Anyway, Clytemnestra's a better governor of Argos than he ever was. On the other side of the equation, Agamemnon was a hero. He was the shield, the dearest shield of the people of Greece. He protected them. He won their greatest battles. He was this glorious, noble figure who will go down forever as a legend, who deserves to be celebrated. Each charge, as the chorus says, meets countercharge. The final plot twist comes with the entrance of a new character, Aeschylus, who is revealed to be Clytemnestra's accomplice and lover. Aeschylus is the surviving son of Thyestes. Thyestes, of course, the brother of Atreus. Aeschylus proclaims the following at line 1635. Let's just turn to that part of the text right now, line 1635. Aeschylus says, "I, the weaver of justice, plotted out the kill. Atreus drove us into exile, my struggling father and I. A babe in arms, his last son, but I became a man, and justice brought me home. I was abroad, but I reached out and seized my man. Link by link I clamped the fatal scheme together. Now I could die gladly, even I. Now I see this monster in the nets of justice. Thus, a second revenge quest comes to an end with the murder of Agamemnon. But as the play closes, it is strongly hinted that another revenge quest is about to begin, as had been earlier prophesied by Cassandra. When Aegisthus threatens the chorus, this is at line 1701, Aegisthus says to the chorus, I'll stalk you all your days if you're not obedient to the new regime. I'm going to be the king of Argos, and Clytemnestra is going to be the queen. The chorus responds at line 1702, not if the spirit brings Orestes home. Well, the next play in this trilogy, a play that Aeschylus titled The Libation Bearers, is about Orestes, the son of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra. Orestes returns to Argos to seek revenge for his father. So we will put aside the plot and characterization in this play for a moment, because I want to talk about the poetry of the play. Aeschylus, in his own time, was revered not only for his dramaturgy, but for his poetry, poetry that has been translated in our text by the great Robert Fagles. There's a play that was written 20 years after this one, a play titled The Frogs. It was composed by the great comic playwright Aristophanes, who will be meeting in a couple of weeks. And in that play, Aristophanes calls Aeschylus master of the towering phrase, great poet of the age. Well, here are some of this play's most remarkable poetic passages, most towering phrases, all of which come from the stasima of the chorus. First of all, this passage about suffering. This is at line 177. So I'll just allow you time to go back to the early part of the play, find line 177. Well, in this passage, again, it's the chorus speaking, the chorus singing, a stasima. And the chorus says this about suffering. Zeus has led us to know, the helmsman lays it down as law, that we must suffer into truth. We cannot sleep, and drop by drop at the heart the pain of pain remembered comes again. And we resist, but ripeness comes as well. Lines 177 to 182. And I think here the word ripeness is intended to mean knowledge, self-knowledge, maturity. So a brilliant passage. And here's another one. So just move ahead to line 413. Line 413 in our Norton text. And this is a poetic passage about lost love. It's describing Agamemnon's brother Menelaus after his wife Helen left him for Paris. And Menelaus is alone in the palace in Mysia, not knowing if he'll ever see Helen again. And this is what the chorus sings, the words of Aeschylus. He longs for the one who lies across the sea, until her phantom seems to sway the house. Her curving image, her beauty hurts her lord. The eyes starve and the touch of love is gone, and radiant dreams are passing in the night. The memories throb with sorrow, joy with pain. It is pain to dream and see desires slip through the arms, a vision lost forever, winging down the moving drifts of sleep. Lines 413 to 424. And the last passage I want to direct your attention to, I mean, there are so many great poetic moments in this play, Flights of Verbal Fancy by Aeschylus, as translated by the great Robert Fagles. But I just want to point out this one uh, before I end the lecture. Line 755 to line 760. Here is the chorus, Aeschylus speaking through the chorus, on revenge. Line 755. But ancient violence longs to breed. New violence comes when its fatal hour comes. The demon comes to take her toll. No war, no force, no prayer can hinder the midnight fury stamped with parent fury moving through the house. The chorus speaking about cycles of violence. And in fact, this trilogy of plays, the only surviving trilogy of plays we have from the 5th century BCE, the Oresteia, is as a whole about tragic cycles of violence. Well, I want to close our discussion today, our lecture today, with a few points about masks, theatrical masks. As I noted last week, actors and chorusmen in ancient Greek theater wore masks during performance. Vase painting from ancient Greece shows that the masks had wide open mouths and wigs attached. The mask covered the actors' heads completely. There's a theater historian, a very brilliant theater historian, who's done invaluable work, named Gregory Macart. And Gregory Macart has written and studied a great deal about the theatrical mask. And he's said, drawn some conclusions about how the theatrical mask would have impacted acting styles in ancient Greek theater. I know all of you watched last week the National Theater production of Agamemnon, where Peter Hall, the director, chose to use more or less original stage practices, including the theatrical mask. Well, Macart, in his studies of the existing evidence that we have about 5th century BCE Greek theater, has said the following. He says, the masks demanded the actors work at the limit of their vocal and physical energies. And after conducting workshops in which modern actors performed some scenes from classical plays while wearing masks, Macart concluded that the original actors of Greek tragedy would likely have had to learn to thrust out their chests, open their shoulders, raise their arms, clench their fists, extend their fingers, adopt an open stance, and stride purposefully over the ground. Acting in a mask, Macart writes, is about the demonstration of emotion rather than the creation of an illusion of emotion. I'll say that again. Acting in a mask is about the demonstration of emotion rather than the creation of an illusion of emotion. So acting in 5th century BCE at the Dionysian Theater in Athens, acting was in part about gestures and stances, which no doubt, by our standards, were exaggerated. In all likelihood, every actor knew a set of conventional gestures, the meanings of which audiences in the Dionysian Theater instantly understood. The masks also allowed the actors to perform multiple roles in a given play. Behind the scene, that is what we would call the backstage, behind the scene, actors likely exchanged masks during the performance. Because remember, we have the chorus, 12 to 15 masked singer dancers on the stage, engaging in dialogue with the actors as well as addressing the audience. And then we have only three speaking actors at any one time on stage, interacting with one another and interacting with the chorus. We know that after a performance and at the end of the City Dionysia festival, the actors' masks were dedicated to Dionysus, and the masks were hung up in the god's temple. Dionysus's temple, known as the Sanctuary of Dionysus, which is located just behind the theater, behind the scheme, was this stone edifice known as the Sanctuary of Dionysus. And there the masks hung after the Dionysian festival came to an end. So next week we will begin our examination of the next great Greek tragic writer, and that is Sophocles. Sophocles, who was about a generation younger than Aeschylus and learned a great deal from Aeschylus, and in some ways took Aeschylean drama to its height, and in other ways departed from Aeschylus. So we'll look at Sophocles and his most famous play, Oedipus the King. And in the process, I'll talk more about the original stage practices, more about the masks, also about the costumes. So I'll wrap it up there, but I'll invite any of you to send me questions by email that you might have about the Oresteia, the Agamemnon, the career of Aeschylus, and how this play was performed on the stage way back in the 5th century BCE.